Look, I already know what's about to happen. Half of you are already typing angry comments and I haven't even started yet. But before you call me a Ronaldo fanboy for the second time this year, hear me out. When I dropped this video earlier this year, a lot of you disagreed with me, convinced I was pushing some CR7 agenda. And look, maybe I can't deny some of that fully, but that wasn't the real point of the video. And I realized afterward that I left out some important details on both sides of the argument. So to properly respond to the comments made on that video, I need to explain exactly why I still lean toward the Champions League being harder to win than the World Cup. But the fundamental truth we must first acknowledge is the motivation itself. For almost every player, Ronaldo being the notable exception nowadays,
if you ask me, Cristiano, is it a dream to win the World Cup? No, it's not a dream.
Winning the World Cup is the ultimate dream. It's obviously far more prestigious than the Champions League and serves as the bigger, more global spectacle of football. Now, first things first. In the previous video, I didn't clearly mention how, in the World Cup, or international football generally, managers have little to no control over their teams compared to the UCL. They are simply stuck with whatever talent pool their country has. If a key striker gets injured in training, that's it. If a fullback is out of form, they still have to play him. France lived this reality in 2022 when Pogba, Kanté, Kimpembe, and Benzema were all ruled out before kickoff. The Champs couldn't buy replacements. He just had to pray. And even when everyone is fit, there's little time to prepare because national teams get what? 2 weeks? Maybe 3? You can't drill complex pressing patterns into players in that brief period for it to become truly innate and seamless. That's why the majority of international football looks so simple, because little to no chemistry between the players. Plus, World Cup tournaments consistently subject teams to extreme physical conditions, like the extreme Qatari heat in 2022 or the humid weather of Brazil 2014. Next year, they're going to have to play in the scorching 35.6 degrees summer heat of Texas, then gasp for air in the high altitude of Mexico City, a huge disadvantage for teams unfamiliar with such extremes. Meanwhile, they're constantly flying across countries every few days with barely any recovery time, only to step onto the pitch and face a host nation with 50,000 people screaming against them. And remember, this entire story plays out with 0 second chances. One bad day or a simple mistake, and you're done. USA in 2002 were eliminated by Germany after the referee failed to award them a clear penalty when German midfielder Torsten Frings made a crucial goal line handball, which cost them the game. If that were the Champions League, they'd have had a second leg to seek revenge. But then again, maybe that's exactly why the Champions League is even harder. Because unlike the World Cup, it doesn't test you for just one grueling month, but 9 whole months. You need a strong team and a deep bench. And the bar just to qualify is significantly higher. You must be good enough all season just to finish top 4 of a major European league. That alone is harder than most World Cup qualification paths. England can qualify while facing teams like Malta, but try qualifying for the Champions League while competing with Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Spurs, and Chelsea. And once you're in the UCL, every opponent is elite. You aren't facing Jamaica or Peru in the group stages, but elite, fully formed clubs that, unlike national sides, can adjust mid-season, buy players instantly, replace injured stars, and completely rebuild their tactics, which national teams can't do. Plus, unlike international football, UCL managers operate with complete control over their teams, supported by massive infrastructure. Now, from the previous video, someone commented that the World Cup happens every 4 years, meaning players have fewer chances in their careers to win it. A loss means waiting another 4 years without a chance. This is true, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's harder to win. I get that the World Cup's 4-year scarcity undeniably makes failure more tragic and definitely makes it more prestigious, but its high emotional pressure should not be confused with true sustained difficulty. It's a short, intense burst of 7 games where a few informed players or some tactical luck can carry a team to success, while the UCL demands unrelenting consistency every year. To even qualify, you must survive an entire, grueling domestic season in a top European league. Plus, the baseline quality of opposition is consistently higher because you're facing teams that adjust tactics constantly or buy replacements mid-season. A far more rigorous challenge. The next was that some great players have failed to win the World Cup despite stellar club careers, e.g. Cristiano Ronaldo, indicating the difficulty of World Cup glory. This argument doesn't prove anything, but simply points
what
to
are
the
you talking
fundamental
about, man?
limitations of international football, not its
I'm
superior
out,
difficulty. Ronaldo was handcuffed by the talent pool of his nation. Portugal during the 2010s was not a consistently solid national team, and since they couldn't just buy players, they had no way to fix their problems. On the other hand, much of his club success was directly tied to the infrastructure provided by great teams like Real Madrid and Man United. If he had played for a team like Everton or remained at Sporting, he wouldn't have scored all those goals and won all those trophies. Because success requires a good team in both the World Cup and the Champions League. Teams like Norway, with only a few world-class players, have minimal chances of winning the World Cup, just as clubs like Slavia Praha have their Champions League prospects severely limited by their inability to spend on world-class talent. Another one said that there are no second chances in World Cup knockout stages. A single bad match means elimination, unlike UCL where teams can recover over 2 legs or in subsequent seasons. Yes, but this argument goes both ways. The single-leg format certainly creates immense emotional pressure, but the 2-leg structure of the UCL is not as easy as it sounds, and it's more like a protracted psychological test. If the second leg didn't exist, Barcelona would have gone through to the final against Liverpool in 2019, PSG wouldn't have experienced Barcelona's remontada in 2017, and Wolfsburg would have eliminated Real Madrid in 2016. In all those cases, the second leg did a profound disservice to the first leg winners, and I'm sure they would have preferred the single-leg structure of the World Cup to the 2-leg structure of the Champions League, which is not the case. Because in the UCL, the best team must prove its dominance not once, but twice, eliminating the concept of luck. Historically, only 8 countries have won the World Cup, showing its exclusivity and difficulty. First of all, the fact that only a select few teams get to play in, let alone win, the World Cup is a result of national football's rigid power structure, not its superior difficulty. Countries like England and Brazil, with a longer, deeper tradition of playing football, benefit from better infrastructure, decades of talent development, and consistently competitive leagues. This gives them a huge advantage over a nation like India. In 10 to 15 years, Saudi Arabia will definitely be a more competitive team at the World Cup. With their continued investment in their domestic league, attracting top talent and managers from around the world, their national players will gain valuable, high-level experience facing the best, making them instantly more competitive. And the fact that the World Cup happens only every 4 years severely limits the pool of potential winners. If the tournament were held annually, like the Champions League, we would almost certainly see more countries lift the trophy. The pressure of representing your country on a global stage is unique and intense. Not for Ronaldo, it isn't. His dream is not to win the World Cup, so I guess he doesn't feel the pressure. But the Champions League also involves a different, arguably more devastating form of pressure in career-defining professional scrutiny. A poor performance in the UCL can cost a player their starting spot, their lucrative contract, or their entire season's legacy. Heck, they may not even get selected for the World Cup. This constant, relentless professional pressure over the course of an entire campaign is a far heavier, more continuous burden than the single-month burst of the World Cup. The World Cup is considered the pinnacle of football achievement, carrying the highest prestige. Now, because it's more prestigious doesn't mean it's the hardest. That would have been the case back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when the World Cup was the only time the best players truly met. But from the 80s onwards, as money flooded into European leagues, the top global talent centralized in the UCL, making it the home of the most difficult competition. The World Cup's rarity certainly contributes to its incredible prestige. And yes, it is still the pinnacle of football achievement. However, it still doesn't mean it's harder to win than the UCL, because whether we like it or not, the peak of football isn't Brazil versus Argentina anymore. It's Man City versus Real Madrid. But international football still gives us something clubs can't, because nothing beats the feeling of a nation uniting. When Salah plays for Egypt or Neymar for Brazil, it's about their legacies, not contracts. When Messi finally won the World Cup, the world cried with him. That feeling of belonging to millions of people just because you were born on the same land is irreplaceable and far exceeds anything the UCL brings to the table, apart from the difficulty itself.